Okay, everybody, we're gonna start the presentation now. And I am gonna introduce Tom Murphy, our Director of Sales. Tom?
Turn myself on here. Hit the right button. There you go. Good morning, everybody. Hey, thank you all for taking time and joining us today. I think it's going to be a valuable, and interesting, and quite in-depth presentation. So Heidi, go ahead, move forward. With the agenda. We've been talking today a lot about Palo Alto and the Palo Alto solutions with the firewall, the depth of the firewall platforms have changed, but well beyond the firewall. We're going to go into a lot more depth and details about the whole solutions of Palo Alto and where they go and how they fit into customer requirements, business requirements, security requirements, and it's going to go fairly deep. Then we're going to kind of come back together and say, okay, where do we go from here now? So you've seen all the Palo Alto, and how does SNL International fit in with this together with Palo Alto and with your business? So we'll have several speakers speaking on that today. I want to start with who SNL is, who we are. Some of you know us, some of you don't. We've been around since 1997. So we've been around for 28 years, working in Los Angeles County and Orange County. We've had quite a long history of working with clients for 20 plus years, some of them. So it's been quite a statement to the leadership, to the ownership that we have, and obviously all the people and personnel that we have, and the depth in what we do with the clients. So it's quite an accomplishment to have a consulting company for this long a period of time. Three areas of business we're focused on. We started off in the Microsoft world, Microsoft core infrastructure, which is where most of all our clients live, in their mail, in their SharePoint, in collaboration, in all the business applications. So this is where they live. It could be migrations, upgrades, troubleshooting, configuration help, assistance, a lot of engineering technical support within the Microsoft core infrastructure. And that leads itself to some synergistic solutions of keeping the data available and keeping the data secure. And in the availability side, we work a lot on business continuity planning, disaster recovery, high availability, archiving, where is your data? And then keeping it available, and then you also need to keep it secure. Secure from obviously external and obviously secure from internal. And today, we're going to dive into the data security piece of how we keeping this data secure. So you move forward, Heidi. We like to always say, SNL International. So what differentiates you? Why are you different? I think the number one difference between us and a lot of other organizations out there is the tenure, the level, the depth of our engineering team. We have 15 engineers on staff. Many have been on here for 15 years plus in SNL International. And not only their experience, but they're up to date, staying up to date in new technology, staying up to date in new types of solutions. They're very consultative in their approach. Like I said before, our customers, we've had some, I've been here for 21 years, we've had some before I got here. They're still here. We continue to grow more customers on a monthly and yearly basis that come in. And once they understand the nature of how we do business, how we support people, the responsiveness of the engineering team. We're not an MSP, but we are an outsourced IT organization to many customers. We're also work very closely with our clients on collaboration, just design, architecture, looking at solutions, options that are out there for them, as well as budgetary issues, and put together comprehensive solutions for them to meet their needs. So I think we're all of that together. It kind of differentiates SNL, and I think you'll find that the team looking at everything as a consultative way really puts us apart and makes a big difference the way we've been successful for all these years. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and go to David's presentation where Palo Alto fits into the security piece of it all. But David?
Thank you for that introduction, Tom. Just want to make sure my mic is working. Everyone hears me okay?
I do.
Yes.
Awesome. Hi. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to the webinar today. My name is David Plasencia, and I'm an SME with Palo Alto Networks products. And today, I just want to preface, we're going to dive into firewall, but we're going to see how we can protect the environment beyond the firewall. So first, I want to take a look at the current state of things with the threat landscapes and that sort of stuff. And we all know that AI is the new buzzword. And there's a lot of positive things that are coming out with AI. You have people that are getting research papers written, and people are making entire songs with lyrics and song composure and all that generative AI. But with that comes the bad things. We have people that are taking advantage of generative AI to help them fuel their attacks. So we're seeing a 2.3 million unique zero-day attacks on a daily basis, and that can be attributed to using AI to write these new scripts and viruses from scratch, and that also leads to the increased scale of these attacks. So when you're using AI, you don't need any skills to write these. It's just tell an AI to write you a certain script for something, and that's why we're seeing the increase here. Also, the fact that there's things available on the market or in the black market for ransomware as a service like Cobalt Strike and that sort of thing, that is also leading to this increase here for those exploit attempts. And then finally, the last piece there is that these are getting more complex, and they are being able to exfiltrate that data much faster from the network. So if you couple that with the way that environments are currently built today, they're very complex and very fragmented. You can see that there's a lot of products there on the screen that cover a lot of different solutions. And most of the time, organizations will pick up these specific tools to remedy a specific issue instead of reaching out and finding if a tool that they already have in place will provide that same protection. What ends up happening is get a lot of tools in the environment. They all do not talk with each other, and you get the analysts, or if you're a smaller organization, you have the network admin that has to work through all these tools, and they don't get a lot of specialty in one specific tool. So then they're not utilizing those tools to their full extent. So how can we help remedy this with Palo Alto Networks? And we're going to take a look here at the firewall, because firewall is their bread and butter, but they are not just a firewall company. They also do things like software such as Cortex XDR, which is going to be their endpoint solution and that sort of thing. So all of those solutions and product sets that you saw in the previous screen, that can be covered by what you see on the screen right now. So on the left-hand side of the screen is what is known as Palo Alto's network security platform. That's going to deal with things like their firewalls and their Prisma Access, which is firewall as a service. And what you get with all this is that you can consolidate all of your tools, all of your network tools into one, and replace them with the Palo Alto Networks firewall and those sorts of things. You can also see there towards the bottom that we have a integrated Copilot into this, and that's going to deal with Strata Cloud Manager, and that's going to actually help you consolidate all your panes of glasses so that you can manage all of these different firewalls and these network security solutions from one place instead of having to go through multiple panes of glass. Now, if we pivot over to the right-hand side, that's going to be the Cortex line, which is near and dear to my heart. That's one of my specialties. And that Cortex line is going to deal with SecOps and deal with SOC operations. So this is where you start diving into tools like SIM, EDR, XDR, SOAR, and all that, which we'll dive into Cortex XDR a little bit later on. So with that, if anyone has any questions, I didn't address this, but please feel free to drop them in the chat and I will try to address them as they come up. If they are something that's a little bit more complex, then I will either reach out after the webinar and handle it that way. So just feel free to drop anything into the chat. I have my chat open here. So I want to take a little bit of a step back with the firewall itself. It is Palo Alto's bread and butter since 2005 when they were started. Previous to that, they were firewalls in general were port and protocol based. So you could easily circumvent them by accessing an application on an uncommon port. Nierzuk, who is the CTO, had the idea for the next generation firewall, which looks at all applications on all ports. And we get what you have on the screen, which is a representation of how the firewall operates. So it is what is known as the single pass parallel processing architecture, which I will refer to as SP3 from now on, because that is a mouthful. But what it describes is you see those 4 yellow blocks on the screen. We have the app ID, which is identifying what application is being used, user ID, which identifies the user that's using that application, the content ID, what are the different URLs or what content are they accessing, along with the device ID. So what we're able to do with this is if a packet comes into the firewall itself, we're able to decrypt it, scan it across all 4 of these engines all at the same time, re-encrypt it, send it back on its way. Now, what this sets this apart from the competitors is they have a similar engine, but they'll bring that packet in, they'll scan it across all 4 of these engines in series, so one after each other, and re-encrypt it and send it on its way. What you get with the Palo Alto is a predictable performance hit. If you activate either one of these features or all of these features, it doesn't matter. You know what you're going to get. With the competitors, every sequential feature that you activate is going to inhibit that performance and impact it furthermore. So that's one of the good things here about the Palo Alto. This screen, we're going to talk about what this network security platform looks like today. So at the bottom is going to be the bread and butter. That's the hardware firewall. And we can start seeing to the right of that, they have a new selection of software firewalls available. So we've got the VM series, which has been a staple as well, but they've implemented new cloud next generation firewalls to replace those cloud firewalls from, I believe it's Azure, AWS, and GCP currently. And what it looks like is a cloud native firewall, but at its heart, it's a VM series Palo Alto Networks firewall. And then on the right-hand side of that little middle box there, we have the AI runtime, which will help secure those AI models, but we're going to dive into that a little bit later on. And then finally, the last block is going to cover the Prisma Access and Prisma SASE Secure Access Service Edge, which will function as a firewall as a service. With all of these offerings, you can apply these different cloud delivered security services, which is that next row above it. And on top of that, we have the Strata Cloud Manager, which is going to be that single pane of glass with that built-in ADEM, AIOps, and the Copilot. So with the Strata Cloud Manager, I mentioned that is the single pane of glass. So you're able to onboard all of your firewalls, software firewalls, cloud firewalls, and Prisma Access and Prisma SASE into there, and you're able to manage all of that from a cloud perspective. So you can log into a cloud portal and manage those firewalls, number one, at scale, and number two, entirely remote. You get increased visibility and management with this tool, as well as a constant scanning of your security posture. So it'll constantly scan your firewall and say, hey, you've got this security policy that is allowing all applications. You may want to tweak this to only specify a specific application, or so on and so forth. It will give you suggestions on how you can improve your security posture. And also provide that operational health awareness. So things like if your firewall is up and connected, or if there's a link down or something to that nature. And then the last piece on this slide that I'll talk to is going to be the Copilot, which is a natural language AI model that is implemented into Strata Cloud Manager, that you can actually use it to query things, or you can use it for help in suggestions on how to further configure that firewall in Prisma Access. The next piece, which is not on this slide, is going to be the ADEM, which was on the previous slide that first encompassed that network security platform. So ADEM stands for Autonomous Digital Experience Management, and what this allows you to do as a user. And if you've been a part of Palo Alto and you're familiar with Prisma Access, you may be familiar with ADEM, but this is an offering that they pulled over from Prisma Access. And what it does is it sends pings along the service chain and will help the user pinpoint different performance issues that may be within that service chain. So if you have a user that's complaining about slow speeds, 9 times out of 10, the first thing that they're going to do is go unplug their router, replug it in, and they're down for 5 to 10 minutes, when in fact the issue was not a part of their home service chain. It was actually part of an application that they're running that may have been pulling too many packets or something to that nature. What ADEM will allow you to do is it'll allow you to ping along that entire service chain and pinpoint where the issue is. And that's something that you can take advantage of with this Strata Cloud Manager. So with that, I'm going to talk about Precision AI, which is Palo Alto's newest rendition of all of their cloud delivered security services, and how they're utilizing AI today to help fight the good fight. So right now, what we see on the screen is a modern kill chain. That's going to be that classic example of a user getting a phishing email, clicking on the link, malware comes in and it's able to propagate on that user's endpoint, and that malware is able to phone home and grants the attacker lateral movement in the environment and begin taking advantage of vulnerabilities within the environment, and then finally data exfiltration. With the cloud delivered security services that Palo Alto uses with all of their firewalls and their network security platform, we're able to stop each of these steps every step of the way. So for example, that initial access, if a user clicks onto a malicious link, this URL filtering will actually step in and prevent the user from accessing that malicious domain. If malware somehow is able to get, or say they're able to access that domain somehow, the Wildfire will step in and prevent that. The Wildfire is their zero-day malware prevention service, and so on and so forth. You can see how every step of the way here, we're able to remedy all of these different issues that come in here. C2 and lateral movement can be handled by the threat prevention delivery service. And finally, data exfiltration can be handled by the advanced DNS, Next-Gen CASB, and AI access security. So where this comes into play with AI and everything, so you can see these 4 leftmost licenses or cloud delivered security services they have advanced in front of them. That is to indicate that they are utilizing machine learning. So machine learning is happening on the firewall in line with the firewall, instead of having to be sent out to a cloud platform to get analyzed. So what ends up happening is you're able to stop that threat within milliseconds versus having to send out and go for a verdict. So it's essentially going to be near real time. And what you get, I wanted to talk on a bundle that is currently on offer for the hardware firewall. That's going to be the Precision AI bundle. It includes those 4 leftmost licenses, as well as the SD-WAN license. And really, if you're putting this out onto a network deployment or perimeter edge, then I would highly advise for that license. So reach out to your rep for additional information on that. So next, I'm going to talk to about Palo Alto's latest innovations with their network security platform. First one up is going to be the AI access security. And this is really going to allow you to help secure your employees and their use of public-facing generative AI. So things like ChatGPT, DeepSeek R1, Hugging Face, and all of those generative AI models that are available for public use. This will help prevent data leakage into those public-facing AI, because we all know that once that data is leaked into that AI model, it is going to be in there forever. So this will really help safeguard against that. And also we can help safeguard against malicious responses. So say, for example, if an employee is Googling how to do something or asking ChatGPT how to do something, and it tells them to run a specific script on their machine, this will help prevent that from getting through. And the next piece here for AI is going to be the runtime security, which is another virtual machine model that we touched on a little bit earlier. And this will allow you to tie in your AI models. So say you're training an AI model for a chat assistant, for example. And what this virtual machine model will allow you to do is allow you to prevent data poisoning into that AI. You'll also be able to prevent malicious access to that. So if someone's unauthorized to access that AI, it'll help keep them separated from it so that they cannot access it and gain either company secrets or poison that model as well. We can tie that in by either API, or we can also position this firewall in front of that AI model in a traditional sense. So I've been talking about firewall and network security now for a long time, about 15 minutes. So I'm going to pivot and go into Cortex XDR and how we can utilize this to help secure the environment further. So for those of you who are not aware, Cortex XDR is the network security, the endpoint security platform for Palo Alto. Cortex comprises currently of 4 different products. 3 of them are represented there on the screen, but again, I'm going to hone in on XDR. So XDR, it operates like your traditional antivirus in a similar fashion. It takes agents that gets installed on endpoints. We can cover Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, and iPhone, and we're able to pull all of that data in from that agent. But alongside that, we're able to pull in network, so firewall logs. We can pull those into Cortex XDR. We can also pull agent data from the cloud, so we can install agents in public cloud assets such as Azure, GCP, AWS, virtual machines. In those different assets there, we can pull that data in as well. We're also able to pull in user data and apply that towards all this. And then finally, if you have something that you don't want to replace with Palo Alto, we can also pull those logs in utilizing that third-party data. As long as that product is able to output logs of some sort, we can ingest it. And what we can do with this is that we can pull all of this into the Palo Alto Network's Cortex XDR data lake and stitch that all together. And what we get is a multi-angle view of a singular attack, is the way I like to think of it. So we're pulling in endpoint data, network data, and combining all of this and applying stitching and correlation to it. That allows us to perform things like endpoint detection response, network detection response, and then user and entity behavioral analytics. So for example, if you have John who is logging in to the corporate office in Pennsylvania every day at 9 a.m., give or take 20 minutes, and suddenly 20 minutes later, they're logging into Singapore, then that is an indication that there's something off there, and that XDR is going to trigger an event and trigger an investigation. Other things too is the indicators of compromise that are a part of that, as well as the behavioral indicators of compromise. Now, indicators of compromise can be your traditional file hashes and those sorts of things, but the behavioral side of it is something that I have not encountered in other products. And what that does is say, for example, you have a user that installs an application checks out, but that application starts propagating and installing other application. That's a behavior that Cortex XDR is going to look at and stop it in its tracks, especially if it's something that's not meant to be there. So next, I'm going to talk about the two different tiers that we have available. We have the XDR Prevent. And you can see you still get that next generation antivirus where you're protected from malware, exploits, and fileless attacks. And you get that endpoint protection where you get device control, which will help prevent those cases where you have a user that picks up a USB drive that's preloaded with malware. And as soon as they plug that into a computer, they are going to have that same scenario where the malware propagates and starts establishing itself and generating a C2 connection and that sort of thing. So device control will deactivate the data connection on your USB ports and prevent that from even happening. Host firewall will allow direct control on those firewalls that are present within the endpoint. So Mac OS, Windows, and Linux all have their own firewalls that will allow specific application ports. You can actually have control over that within Cortex XDR, so you don't have to go into that specific endpoint. And then finally, disk encryption. I want to point your attention towards the bottom of the screen here with the data sources. So we've got Cortex XDR Prevent is only capable of ingesting that endpoint data, but the Cortex XDR Pro, that's where we start seeing the ability to ingest endpoint, network, cloud, and all third-party data. So this is where we can really take advantage of that previous screen. You also get additional options here like Host Insights, which can serve as a vulnerability scanner. You can also take advantage of Unit 42 and run managed detection response in your environment. And that will, if you don't have the technical bench available to run this product, then you can absolutely utilize them to step in and run that for you and run investigations and forensics and that sort of thing. And then, yeah, we have cloud agents available as well, which I kind of touched on. Where this ties into the Palo Alto firewall is that we're able to pull in that app ID data, that user ID data, that content ID data, and combine it with all of those file hashes, the user, the signature, and all of that together. We get this one unified story. So that's about it for Cortex XDR. If you have additional questions, I mean, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer them. Next, I'm going to talk to the Prisma Access browser. So Prisma Access browser is going to be a new addition to the Palo Alto Networks lineup. And this is going to be part of that network security solution. And this is going to be an enterprise grade browser, excuse me. So Palo Alto started taking a look at statistics. They're saying that a worker's day is generally spent 85 to 100% within the browser, and they are not wrong. I can tell you from my experience that I worked on this entire slide deck from a browser utilizing a SaaS application, Office 365. And we can see that there's over 10,000 SaaS applications that are out there on the web today. And we depend on these different applications, but we're accessing them from things like a Firefox or a Chrome or even a Microsoft Edge, which if you're using that, I'm sorry, I use it as well. So it really is a nice solution here. So what we're able to do with the Prisma Access browser is we're able to get any user on here and any device, any location, any application, and we can install these on either managed or unmanaged devices. And I'm going to take a step here for a second. Ours asking if there's a trial period for Cortex XDR to connect them and see how they function together. Absolutely. There is a 30-day eval trial that you can take advantage of, and we can get you set up with one of those. Just reach out to your rep at SNL, and they will be able to help you set that up. So continuing on with the Access browser, so we can install this browser on either unmanaged or managed devices. So if you're utilizing things like a bring your own device, then we can absolutely set that up there. Or if it's part of the enterprise, the assets part of the enterprise, we can absolutely set that up as a managed device as well. And what this allows us to do is say, I'll take you to an example. I had a customer that was a medical facility. They had a lot of contractors. So a lot of the doctors were employed as contractors. A lot of them had bring your own devices. What this allowed them to do is it allowed them to grant access to their database of all of the different customers. And you can put things in there like copy and paste protection. So if you have a lot of PII, personal identifiable information, excuse me, I cannot say that fast, then it will allow them to copy it. But if they're trying to paste it into a thing like a Dropbox, or if they're trying to paste it into the computer, into a notepad, it will prevent that. It'll also help them prevent taking screenshots of things as well. And we're able to boost visibility into those different SaaS applications and web apps. This browser is also based on it's built off of Chromium, so it will operate similarly to that. And then the final piece here is that I will talk to is going to be Unit 42, which is oftentimes I refer to as the fourth branch of Palo Alto, because they used to have the 3 different branches, but things are shifting. But Unit 42 is going to primarily serve as their threat intelligence. So whether you're a customer of Palo Alto already or not, Palo Alto utilizes Unit 42 for a majority of their different cloud delivered security services. So they provide all of that threat intel feeds. So majority of those different file hashes that may be present are fed through from Unit 42. And this is a service that you don't have to specifically subscribe to if you're a Palo Alto Networks customer already, but just know where they get all this information from. Their SOC, they utilize somewhere like 75 terabytes of data on a daily basis, and they're able to get, I think, 70 billion events from that. And they're able to automate all that down, and they pull all that in as intel into their SOC, and they're also able to pull in 75 plus third-party feeds and provide that to all their customers. The other things that they are known for, what they're able to do is they're able to perform things like respond, assess, and transform your current SOC. So if you need to utilize them for the different tools or if you need to utilize them for disaster recovery, for example, say your company was hit with ransomware, they will be able to come in and help you recover from that specific attack, or they could provide different whiteboarding services. The exhaustive list that they have available here is up there on the screen, and they function much like a retainer with a lawyer. You purchase a block of credits and you can utilize them for any one of these services. That can be anything from preventative things like penetration testing and assessments and that sort of thing, to transform to deliver a plan to help make your SOC and your environment much more secure, to responding to those threats that have already come in. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Jim Prudhomme, and we'll be able to close this out. I will be monitoring the chat and answering any questions that come in. So thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're finding this good use of your time and your day. We appreciate everyone taking a little bit of time out of their lives to join us. I wanted to kind of bring everything together. The introduction was from Tom Murphy with SNL. I am also a network engineer with SNL. And Arrow is a strategic partner. We specialize in service delivery. That's really what we do. So we're kind of the nuts and bolts of getting you from thinking about a Palo Alto or even having a Palo Alto, and really kind of getting you to the finish line. You want to go to the next slide? Okay. So what do we actually do? What we have found in our years of experience is there's a kind of 2 branches, the high-level design and targeted design services. And roughly that kind of breaks down into, are you migrating to a Palo Alto? And do you need help on what that migration looks like? Or do you already have it? You want to basically wring all the performance out of it. What we found is that a lot of Palo Alto customers, because as David mentioned, it went from the legacy port and IP-based firewalls. They really just kind of forklifted that design into the Palo Alto and never really took advantage of the next gen. So those 4 service delivery layers that you saw, they're not fully implemented, and that's really what gives you the full power of the Palo Alto architecture. So we find that a lot of customers just kind of got that initial hardware migration done because that's what drives a lot of migrations, but they really haven't implemented it fully. So that's what we do. We do that by providing a very detailed service delivery, which is a high-level design, a targeted low-level design, and documentation, as well as fully customized. And what that really does is get you from a nebulous, I think I know what I'm going to do, to articulating that to within your entire either user community or technical community. So we find that that really is kind of the secret sauce for a successful delivery and design, right? You want to go to the next slide? Okay. So as I mentioned, high-level design, new deployment. You know, what size Palo Alto you need, what subscriptions do you need? You saw there's a wide range of subscriptions. The nice thing about Palo Alto is you can start out with the ones that you know and then add on. So it's very, very modular, very cost effective. Or you've got an existing Palo Alto infrastructure and you're at the point where you want to start investigating or pivoting to centralized management. You've got a single firewall, you want to do HA, or you want to get to that zone-based deployment, right? We find that that is also what drives a lot of interest in Palo Alto and also the thing that is difficult to overcome. Once you've got a Palo Alto in production, it's really tough to go in and reconfigure that thing because it's in production. It's not the migration window that you've set expectations for. And it really takes somebody who's done it lots and lots of times, which is what we do, to go in and be able to kind of thread the eye of the needle. I want to go to the next one. All right, so targeted service design. So this is going to be something that I'm going to talk a little bit about and what we typically see. And I'm not sure how many folks on here are existing Palo Alto customers or if they're thinking about migrating to it. But if you are an existing Palo Alto customer, these are typically the things where we find most people struggle with. App ID and SSL decryption. Not sure if that's something that the audience, I'm just kind of looking at the chat here to see if anything comes in. That's typically where we find a lot of difficulty. These are wide-ranging and high-level impact configuration designs that typically people want that expertise on. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we do that service delivery, but these are generally the things that we find that people need help with pretty much all the time. The other thing that we see a lot of is the shift to centralized management, and that can be either the on-premise or the cloud. So a lot of people now are, like David mentioned, that single pane of glass. They want to get everything where they can see it. They're really getting fatigued by the amount of different tools that they're using. And really, we're seeing the drive and the demand for optimization. And that's really kind of a homogeneous environment. That's something that we're very happy to see Palo Alto expanding the scope of their service offerings so that it really is from A to Z. So that's something that we typically also see a lot of folks that we work with wanting to adopt, and something that we are very accustomed to and able to provide folks. You want to go to the next one? So for the professional services, like I mentioned, we've developed a mature model that we found really drives the ability to articulate the value and the scope of what the technical team may have an idea that they want to do, but really can't communicate that to the business in general. We've got technical champions and decision makers. We've got the business decision makers, and they really need to come together to make these decisions. And that's something that Tom mentioned earlier at the beginning, something that we help kind of bridge that divide. We found that it's easy to accomplish when we clearly articulate what is going to be done, the impact, and how we're going to do it. We've had projects that we have basically bypassed some larger organizations' project management just because we have a clearly articulated design that they can understand, and then we basically just execute on those documents. So it's really broken up into a high-level document design, which if you're a technical person, this is kind of the block diagram, kind of where the big bits go. The low-level design document is typically where we really get in sync with the technical implementation folks. We find that this helps two ways. One, it clearly details what exactly we're going to do, where we're going to do it, what we're touching, and more importantly, for the folks that actually have to live in things like change management and just documenting that, this is really a breeze. We've had clients that literally will take our low-level design document, cut and paste into their change management, and that just really simplifies it. So it really kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting and really kind of the tough grunt work that, again, a lot of folks don't do this time and again. We do. So that's really kind of what we use as a differentiator for other folks. It just says, oh, here's a startup service. We're going to do quick and dirty, just get it up and running so we can say it's up and running, and that's it. We really want to get you across the finish line. We want to be there at the end of it when it's done. That's really our goal. Also, that something that really differentiates us is how we engage with you. I mentioned there's no startup service. You can do that. We'll be happy to do that for you. But really, we want to make sure that it's soup to nuts. And we can do that a couple of different ways. We can do completely hands-off. So as Tom mentioned earlier, we are the IT shop. We can do that model if you're a small team and you really don't have the ability to expand your bandwidth to get that project across the finish line. Or we can do it assisted. So we can basically look like a small temporary extension to your technical team and be there for the implementation and kind of the initial migration, and then give you back the wheel and off you go. Or as I'm calling it, the in and out model. A lot of people like to use that. We basically look like a familiar 911, I'll call it. So I don't know how many folks have had the experience where you call tech support. They really don't like to do implementation services. They really want to be break fix. So if you need that subject matter expert when you're halfway through your implementation and you run into a glitch, a hiccup, whatever it is, we'll be happy to do that. We can come in, fix it, get out. We typically build rapport with our clients very quickly, get to know them. We do this a lot. So we'll kind of jump in the middle of fires. That's something that we've been doing for quite a while.